What's up, YouTube? So it's been a while since I took a look at aura stackers, and I do know there's someone in my YouTube chat who's always mentioning about aura stackers. And what you're seeing here is some content from Scourge League, and the aura stacker is actually probably a pretty strong build, and it's definitely a contender for one of the strongest builds in Scourge League, if not the strongest, with armor stacking. Now, this is Spark. I generally prefer the spellcaster version over the what's it called, the armor stacking version. But as you can see, it does the fear pretty effortlessly. Now, and this is a 44% more monster life. Of course, the fear is super easy on Spark because it scales extremely well with how all the projectiles will bounce off the wall and hit the bosses multiple times, or as many times as possible. So I thought about aura stacking because I saw the new unique jewel, which actually gives you the same maximum resist as your highest. So if you have 90% lightning res or you have 90% fire res, that means you can have 90% all res, right? So theoretically, this should be a huge buff to aura stacking. Now, while doing this, we will be probably looking at... So then I decided to go to PoE Ninja and look at the #1 Spark damage build just to see how this would effectively change the equation. So we're going to go look at the #1 DPS profile. And then we're going to look at how the new jewel that GGG introduced could potentially change the equation, and if I think that Aura Stacker will be viable without using March of the Legion, because March of the Legion is a pretty annoying playstyle, but March of the Legion is actually not as bad as you may expect when you have like 30-second duration on auras. So let's go look into how someone has 95 million DPS and how, and this number is probably higher than the Expedition League at this point. As always, when you want to do a POB, you want to click on the import link. You copy and paste the code. You go to this section, import code here, and let's go see how this person has 95 mil, because this is actually a pretty insane amount of damage. And immediately we see that they have too many passive points. So too many passive points, kind of bad. So they're probably not taking these travel nodes, and probably not taking Agent of Destruction. So now he has 3 points left over, and he's probably not taking this one. Heraldry, this is 6.2% DPS. What's Snowstorm up here? So he probably took these two. If I had to guess, or no, he took these off. So he took these ones off and then left this one in. And he has 1 point left over. I'm not exactly sure which one he didn't take. Maybe he took this one. It's 1.3% DPS. But regardless of what he took, that's probably what it looks like, right? Unless he didn't take one of these nodes at the end. No, that's a huge amount of damage. Yeah, so I'm not really sure exactly which node he didn't take. But regardless, let's just say he took this one here. But you can see here, it's still 85 million DPS after you take out some of the cheating nodes, or not cheating nodes, but it's just what Path of Building allocates, because it just assumes you take every single node in a cluster. So this person has some expensive stuff. You can see he has a 1 passive point voices, and then he has the large cluster with Blanketed Snow, Snowstorm, Disorienting Display, Blanketed Snow. Oh, so he probably didn't take, so it's probably like this, right? Or I don't know what this he actually did, but theoretically he doesn't need 2 Disorienting Displays, right? So what if you went over the top here? Oh wait, so maybe like this is the best. No, this is 85 mil, so it just ends up being worse. Oh, maybe like this. There we go, 85 mil. Regardless, it's the same. Can't really change it by that much. So overall, you can see that this build has 100% crit, 561% multi, right? So we want to go look at the defenses of the build. So already this person is kind of already doing a thing, kind of like with the new unique jewel, where he's just sacrificing fire res. So he's not running Purity of Fire, and then he has Purity of Cold and Purity of Lightning, or Purity of Ice, I mean. So let's go look at the items, right? So 2 Nebuluses, and both of these Nebuluses are top of the line Nebuluses, right? These are spell, double damage, spell damage, and 10% crit chance. And he also scourged it to have 23% lightning damage and 12 to 27 fire damage to spells. This Nebulous is honestly just crazy, and I don't think it can get much better besides getting like crit multi or something. Now here is another spell double damage nebulous with 58% reduced fire damage, which doesn't do anything for it, and then 24% increased lightning damage. So this guy has some pretty good gear. So he has a Synth Implicit 15% increased effect of non-curse auras, and this is what most people use because it's pretty hard to get 300% aura effectiveness. And the reason you want 300% aura effectiveness is so that you can get 5% max res from one purity and then multiply it by 3 to get 15% max res. So he has a Spark enchant, which doesn't really factor into the DPS calculation. And then he crafted this with an essence for the 10% reservation efficiency of skills. And I think he did it until he got intelligence. And he did some ashling to get +2 AoE. And lastly, he did multi-mod and crafted this helm. So it's ended up being like 157 ES. So this helm will obviously be better on a hubris base, but regicide mass is not that big of a deal. Now, in the new age of aura stackers, everyone runs chest piece, so shabs is no longer the meta, or sack of walls is no longer the meta because it's honestly pretty useless. So the reason why people use this chest is because you get 30% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills, which helps a long way towards getting 300%. And then he also has 1.4 a spell crit. So this chest alone, if you take off this chest, so let's take off this chest, 57 mil, right? So you put it as sack of walls, which is what people always used before. So sack of walls gives you 20% mana reservation efficiency of skills. So you can see this thing is nowhere near as good as Vol Regalia. And the Vol Regalia also gives you an insane amount of ES. So Hands of the High Templar, as always, this player is actually pretty nuts. If the 10% attack speed was cast speed, then it would actually be perfect. So this is a +6. And then LA weakness. So most people use this pair of gloves for smite. And then empowered discipline. So you can see it without the discipline, he has 3.4k ES. And with the discipline, it goes all the way up to 6.6k. So getting this pair of Hands of the High Templar is absolutely crucial. So now this is the cringe part with the build, which is March of the Legion. So you have damage penetrates, and then it's a +2. So he corrupted it to get +2 auras. So it's a +4 auras. So this is an insane amount of damage. But with these boots, you pretty much have to press the auras every... Let's go see. So he's running them in the boots here. And the auras actually only last 17 seconds. This profile is kind of fake because it doesn't have Malevolence. Because you can see here, most profiles will use an O's Uprising. Because Malevolence is actually more than this. This amulet is pretty insane. It's a 20% pen amulet with 34% multi. But without the amulet, it's at 62 mil. So if you use Malevolence, it's probably going to be more real life damage. And you'll also make it a lot easier to play. Now, 2 Call of the Brotherhoods. And it seems that Aura Implicit Call of the Brotherhoods are no longer needed because all of the auras are on the March of the Legion boots that you would want. So you just have some Wrath effect and Zealotry effect. And as most aura stackers, they all use Mage Blood nowadays. The reason you use Mage Blood is because it actually helps you out a lot. It gives you a lot of resist. He's actually using an Onslaught Flask, which is pretty weird. And I don't really know if I agree with it, but he's pretty much just doing it to get as much damage as possible. So he's using Quicksilver, Diamond, Granite, and of course, for any tooltip to build, you will have Bottle Faith with 70% increased effect. So let's take a look at the jewels, right? So the Aura Stacker has changed in that you can't really use any jewels that give you multi, as all of your jewels for your clusters will be a small cluster jewel, and then you have to get Introspection, which gives you the 10% increased effect, and that's how you actually stack effect in order to get 300%. So he does have one jewel here, and this is pretty much a perfect jewel with like, how much percent is this? This is insane amount of multi, 50% multi. So the way that aura stackers get their multi now is through this combination of Transcendent Flesh and Lethal Pride. So what Lethal Pride does is it puts strength in every single one of these nodes. So you see all these nodes as 4 strength. And the Transcendent Flesh gives you 7% multi per 10 strength. So if you take out these 2 jewels right here, this one jewel gives 102% multi, and this other one gives 97% multi. So these 2 jewels alone, this combination, gives you around 200% multi, which is actually just crazy. So that's actually how you solve the crit multi issue. So most of So you can see how much cheaty Supreme Ego is. So if he really wanted to cheat, he would just take this one node and he would have 226 mil Spark DPS. So if he's watching this video, just do that and people will be like, how did you get this amount of damage? But basically, this profile is not really that much cheating. This is just someone who has really good gear with double nebulouses. He actually dropped one of the auras, so he's actually running Skitterbot. So instead of running Purity of Fire, like you would normally do to get 90% fire res, he's actually just running Purity of some of Skitterbots. He also doesn't have Grace, which is a pretty big deal for your actual mitigation because you can see this build is not that tanky. But not having Grace is not the end of the world. I mean, it's bad. And he also has another thing where he's using Sniper's Mark. I'm not sure if this gets calculated. I'm not sure. Does he have dual curse? What's he actually running for his ascendancies? He's running Necromancer. Yes, but so he actually has Sniper's Mark on here. I'm not really sure how he gets dual curse, but basically Sniper's Mark is an insane amount of damage. It's 20% more damage. He does running Defiance Banner. He's running all of these auras because he's trying to benefit from the damage reduction per aura from Guardian, and then the cast speed you get from Necromancer. So overall, this profile has a lot of potential. This build will probably just absolutely destroy everything. Even if the defenses are super, super crazy, it's not exactly a super, super glass cannon either. The max hit is pretty high on everything besides fire. And this could probably be fixed if you just use a Ruby Flask. So overall, I do think that Aura Stacker is a pretty good build overall. And it should be something that can be played if you want to invest a lot of currency into. Now, March of the Legion is kind of annoying. So if you do run Malevolence, let's say you take out this amulet and actually don't like troll, then if you run, so here we want to put on Malevolence, and this actually allows your Spark to feel a lot better. So here you can see with this, your aura effectiveness, or not aura effectiveness, your duration on the auras goes up to, so 17 seconds. I put on the amulet. Malevolence has no reservation. I don't even know how to take on Malevolence. Where's Malevolence? But oh wait, you still need the Malevolence gem, right? Or let's just say you put on Malevolence here. So if you put on Malevolence, this actually is an insane amount of so it gives you 23.71 seconds, and there's other stuff you could do. You could technically also go down here and take this more duration. And you'll probably have to sacrifice some points somewhere, so maybe like points here. But basically, you do sacrifice some damage, but this has actually more damage because Malevolence gives you duration on Spark. And with this cluster 2, you have 31.73 seconds, right? So you only need to press these 4 buttons, which is pretty fast with the amount of cast speed you have. And you do have a lot of cast speed at 8.62. So I do think that Spark Aura Stacker is honestly back on the menu. And with the new jewel, it's probably going to be a lot better. So let's go take this new jewel we're talking about. So this is a new jewel. Now, it's kind of a little bit of weird wording, but what it means is your elemental resistances are limited by your highest maximum elemental resistance. So if you have 90% lightning res, or 90% fire res, or 90% cold res, you will have 90% all res for fire, cold, and lightning. Now, the downside is negative 76% to all elemental resistances. I do think that this is normally like kind of hard to overcome for a lot of builds. This is pretty much like 6 suffixes worth of elemental resistances. However, this item is incredibly powerful as always if you have Mage Blood, which is kind of sad. And it also depends on how rare this item and what this actually divines to. It could divine all the way down to 75, or it could divine to 50, right? But basically, I do think the item is incredibly powerful if you are able to build around it. And theoretically, running a purity of elements with a little bit of aura effectiveness almost cancels out this downside. But you do still have to find a way to get to 90% res, whether that's through purity with aura effectiveness or through items like not brass stone, but like a shield or something. It's probably pretty good with Mage Blood, Righteous Fire too. But for this case, we're trying to think about what we could use this with the Aura Stacker. So you do sacrifice 1 jewel slot on this Aura Stacker. And in return, you no longer need to run Purity of Lightning or Purity of Ice. And that does free up, theoretically, on the traditional Aura Stacker that's not like cheating without Fire Res. you could free up another slot, another 35% aura. So you pretty much have you have 70% reservation efficiency left over, or the ability to run 70% worth of mana for aura. So that means you can run another 50% aura. And what this also means is that it brings you one step closer to being able to play without March of the Legion. So if you look at this profile that I tinkered with a little bit, without March of the Legion, it is actually kind of doable. You have to swap out the auras around. So I put Enlighten for Haste, Wrath, Zealotry, and a Helmet now. And then Hatred, Purity of Light, Ice, Enlighten, Defiance banner. So what this means is I'm only running Purity of Ice now. And this profile doesn't have Grace. Or does it have Grace? I'm not sure. Let's see. Did I put in Grace on this? No, it does not have Grace because the armor is so low. So this is actually like something you could do. And what you have to do to make this profile work is that you need 45% more increased mana reservation efficiency of skill. Now, this is kind of hard to come by. What you could do is you can make up for maybe on the amulet, and you can get reservation efficiency there. You could theoretically get all perfect clusters and get 2% on each jewel, which is probably an impossibility, but we're talking about like absolutely min-max. And lastly, you could also get it if you use more one passive point voices, and you have 2 more clusters would do the trick, honestly. So if you have 2 more one passive point voices and you use 2 more reservation efficiency clusters, you could actually pull off the setup without ever having to use March of the Legion. Now, the problem with this is that I don't really believe that March of the Legion is that bad of a playstyle when you're at 31.73% seconds of duration. And I do think that this is going to be just such a better build overall in terms of how it's going to feel, right? The damage is going to be a lot higher. You're going to have more defenses because you're not having to sacrifice so much. And losing a jewel socket on this build is absolutely huge because of the fact that one of the jewels literally looks like this. So one of your jewel sockets, you could be losing 8% energy shield and all of this 50% multi. In addition, you're probably also losing a flask. You'll probably have to switch this flask to a bismuth flask in order to make everything work. But it does give us the option to maybe one day be able to play without March of the Legion and still have like 40 to 50 mil Spark DPS. And in the end, I hope this video opened your eyes towards how good Spark Aura Stacker can be. And this is mostly also due to Scourge gear. And Mage Blood actually makes this character incredibly tanky. Like if this person was not trying to be such a tooltip warrior and ran the right auras and ran Grace, this character is actually extremely, extremely tanky in my opinion. And this is kind of good, I think. I think this is another potential endgame build. I do think that not really that many people made videos about the Aura Stacker Spark. It's kind of a annoying playstyle with March of the Legion, but with 31-second auras, it's really not too bad if you really enjoy the playstyle of Aura Stacker, and the damage is definitely there. It'll probably be a little bit lower without Scourge. And overall, I think the jewel that got released is pretty niche. I think even for this build, it can't really make Aura Stacker that easily playable without without trying to get more reservation efficiency and making the build an absolute nightmare to do. But I hope this video, even though it's a little bit long, helps you understand how the Aura Stacker is currently being built and the actual potential high-end damage of the build. And the potential of the build is extremely high. The biggest technology is honestly the Lethal Pride and 2 Transcendent Fleshes in the Scion area to give you around 200% multi. But one day, we will be able to play Aura Stacker again. I don't know when it will be. I might even try it out before League launch. This is not a League Start viable build. This is definitely a second or third or fourth build of the League. But definitely still a viable build and definitely will be as strong as ever. And who knows, maybe in 3.17 they'll do some changes or maybe there'll be some nerfs. But in the grand scheme of things right now, still probably one of the strongest builds in the game. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods than me, and see you next time. Bye.